Hey YouTube, today I'm going to be assembling a Windows XP computer using a very interesting little motherboard here. It's going to be an ITX motherboard with an ITX case. It's going to have a 120 gig SSD and a serial ATA DVD CD burner. And as far as the motherboard goes, this is a motherboard that has an Atom N270 CPU running at 1.6 gigahertz. It's a single core dual threaded CPU. It's got an IDE connector here, 2-channel IDE. It's got two serial ATA ports, a PCI expansion slot. It's got a ton of USB headers on the motherboard. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's even got an LVDS connector here that you could use to connect this directly to a flat panel display. As you can see, it's fully passive cooling for all the major chips on the board. And in the back here, we have a PS2 port that can be used for either a mouse or keyboard. It's got two USB 2.0 here, a VGA output for the onboard Intel 950 GMA video adapter, and it's got a DVI output here. So here, technically you could have a dual monitor setup, I believe, if you wanted to do something like that. It's got a parallel port, two serial ports, and two more USB ports here, onboard Realtek HD audio, and an Ethernet port. As far as the case is concerned, this is a case that I bought many years ago. I believe it's an Inwin mini ITX case. It supports an optical drive, so I can put the burner in here, and it's got just a power button, hard drive LED light, power light, and up here it has two USB ports and the audio connections for the header. For the storage, I decided to go with an SSD. It's a 120 gig SSD. Got this from Amazon. It's not a high-end brand, but for this build, it works really well. And this is a serial ATA cable, short one. As far as the burner is concerned, this is an old burner that I had from a working system. It's got it's a DVD burner, so it'll be utilized to install software like games and run them. So definitely something you want in an older computer. But you could also use USB flash drives and transfer data from a more modern laptop to this. The case came with a power supply, and I've been noticing that lately a lot of the newer ITX cases, or cases in general, they don't give you things like optical drive bays, and they don't include power supplies. They expect you to purchase those things separately. So this case is kind of special given the current state of things with the market. The motherboard is a Jetway motherboard, and here, as you can see in my normal computer, my MacBook, it uses a first generation Intel Atom N270, and it's meant for embedded computing. And the specs are as follows. It has a Intel 945 GSE chipset with an ICH7M companion, and it's got one DDR2 SO-DIMM slot up to 2 gigs, which is what we're using. So yeah, I forgot to mention that on the board there's this SO-DIMM slot, and in it I've installed my only 2 gig DDR2 memory stick. But I was surprised that it worked, because I have other motherboards. Sorry, I have some laptops that use the same chipset, same CPU, and it didn't really like taking this 2 GB stick. So this is a better build unit than those laptops. As far as audio, there's a Realtek ALC662, and it's got a gigabit Ethernet adapter, which with Windows XP, I don't unless you're doing a local area network that is not connected to the internet, I don't recommend using the internet on a Windows XP machine. But for multiplayer games in like a LAN-based environment, then that might work. It's got two SATA 2 3 gigabit per second ports, and a parallel ATA port with a UDMA 33, 66, and 100 megahertz. What else? This cute little diagram here with all the I/O ports. It's got a lot for this motherboard. They really went all out. And bunch of I/O. And its design is meant for digital security and surveillance, digital signage, gaming. So maybe as part of like a embedded system in one of those arcade machines. That's possible. We'll see how well the games perform on this machine. Industrial, automation control, medical, retail, thin client, HTPC. Interesting. Well, this is back when Mini ITX was being heavily used for the HTPC market. So, all right. So let's take a moment here to switch things up, and I'm going to open the case, and we can get started with building this out. All right. Let's get started. Okay, so I went ahead and removed the first thing I did was I removed the cover from the case. It just had 3 screws, and I use some foam here to keep them in place so that I don't lose them. Inside the case, nothing much. There's just the cables for the front panel. There's the power supply cables, and this power supply amazingly has a 6-pin connector for a PCI Express video card, maybe. And does it have any SATA? Let me see. SATA power. No. Oh yeah, it does have one SATA power connector here that I can use for the hard drive. So that's nice. I don't have to use any adapters. And a bunch of other Molex connectors that I'm not going to use, and the P4 connector, which this motherboard doesn't require. So amazing. This is a really good power supply for something this small. It's only, I think it's only 150 watt. Let's see on the other side here. Oh, 300 watt micro ATX power supply. That's a lot more than I expected this thing to provide. So 22 amps at the 5-volt rail, 9 amp at the 12-volt rail. 300 watts in such a little package. That's kind of cool. I hope it's not too loud. All right, so let me put this back down. And what I'm going to start with is I've already gone ahead and used the standoffs and installed the standoffs for the motherboard down there. So I'm going to go ahead go ahead and install the motherboard. I don't have an I/O shield, otherwise I would put one in there. This, like I said, I bought this motherboard without the I/O shield. Okay, so I put that in there, and I'm gonna go ahead and install some of these screws, and then we'll continue with the hard drive. Okay, so what I've done here is I've gone ahead and installed 4 screws. That one, this one down there, and one down there. Now the motherboard is secure, and what we can do now is we can take a look at the cables that we have for the power supply. We're gonna have to run it underneath there, all the way over here. And for the front I/O ports, we're gonna have to plug in the audio headers. And this is the USB port. This is for the top I/O right here. And on the motherboard down here, we have this colored coded header down here. Let's see if I can get you a closer view. That one right there is the one that gets the front panel connectors for the hard drive light, the power switch, and the power LED. And those are these right here. The SSD is going to be mounted in this tray up here, and this is designed for a 3.5 inch unit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure the SSD with just 2 screws here, and then run the SATA cable through this gap in the back. I may need to get a longer SATA cable because it has to go all the way over here. So I'm gonna get started with that. I'm gonna first wire up the power supply. Sorry, I'm gonna first wire up the front panel because that's gonna be underneath the power supply cable. And before I do that though, I want to show you the diagram for the motherboard. This is the manual from Jetway for this motherboard. And if you're looking for manuals online, usually you need to know the model of the motherboard. You can either power up the motherboard, and sometimes the BIOS screen does show it. In this case, the model number was underneath the memory module down here. It is the NF94270LF, and that's how I found all the information, all the drivers, everything that is necessary to get this unit up and running. So I'm gonna put the memory module back on. There you go. And what we're gonna be doing is here you have the HD audio front panel audio connector, and these are more serial ports. So you have 2 serial ports in the back, and then you have 2 more serial ports here, which is kind of insane. 4 serial ports. I guess there are some applications in the industrial applications that could benefit from having up to 4 serial ports. There's 2 USB headers here. There's a GPIO connector. That's interesting. General purpose IO. That means that this motherboard lets you do interesting, like you can toggle these in software. That'd be kind of cool. There's two fan connectors here and a CPU fan connector here. This is the Atom N270 CPU that is soldered on the board. This is the Intel 945 GSE chipset. And this is keyboard USB power. I don't know what that is. And what is this? And down here you have the front panel connector and a speaker connector, which we will use because this case came with a little piezo tweeter, a buzzer that I can connect onto that header. And overall, it's a really well laid out board for everything that it has. This is the LVDS connector, and it can also drive the inverter straight from the motherboard. And it has HDTV out here, which I guess I wonder if that's an HDMI port. I don't think so. I don't think you would want to have an HDMI signal. This is probably like RGB, maybe? Be interesting to see what that is. All right, so I'm gonna use that diagram to get the board wired up, and I'll see you in a bit with that. All right, so as I was scrolling to see where the front panel I/O headers are, I found this little section, and indeed that HDTV output is RGB. So you have red, green, blue, and key and ground. So the key is, sorry, key is just a blank spot on the header, but you have RGB and ground. So that's kind of cool that this machine, this motherboard lets you have RGB output. If you had an RGB monitor or something else that you'd like to try, like I guess that would be useful in maybe arcade applications with older CRT monitors that you'd like to play. So kind of cool. Okay, so I've gone ahead and wired up the SSD right here, and this cable's a little bit tight, but I think it'll work. It should not block the optical drive, the CD-ROM drive here, from getting on in there. If it does block, I will need to get a Molex to SATA adapter so that it's a little bit more relaxed. I've attached the ATX plug here, and this is a front panel USB, and the HD audio header is back there installed. Here I've gone ahead and used the diagram on the web, on the manual, to wire up the front panel, and what's left now is for me to install an optical drive. For that, I had to remove the front cover, and that's done by simply pulling on it, because it has these clips, plastic retainers that just hold the case in place. And as here you can see the top I/O, and then the switches and the LEDs for the hard drive and power. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna install the optical drive that I have here. I'm gonna use the rails that came with the case to mount it, and that should be it. Then we'll take a look again once that's installed and power it up. Okay, so this is it. I've installed the CD DVD burner here, and had to reroute some of the wires, some of the connectors underneath the CD. Before I had it up, I was using these holes in the case here, and that was causing some problems when I pushed back on the CD. And I did end up having to use a Molex to SATA adapter for the SSD, because I also needed a SATA connector for the CD-ROM, SATA power connector, because this is a SATA CD-ROM, and this power supply only has one of those. In the front, it sounds like the CD-ROM faceplate here will actually open, because if I tap on this, you can hear that it is actually pressing the button on the CD, and that has a little plastic that goes over and pushes on the button for CD, and the tray. This is supposed to be a tray that opens up and allows the optical drive. Basically, the optical drive is gonna push out this tray open. So now, all that's left is for me to put the cover back on, and I'll bring up a monitor. I'm going to use a Dell Ultra Sharp monitor to test this out, and let's go from there. Okay, so here's the final product. It's fully assembled, and I plugged in a DVI monitor, the Dell Ultra Sharp, with a 4:3 aspect ratio, and a USB keyboard and mouse, and that's it. Let's power it up and see how it performs. Also, I've already previously imaged this SSD with Windows XP Professional and installed some games. And I also, oh, by the way, I also connected a couple of Logitech speakers here. So let's power it up. That's Windows XP up and running. And that was very fast. So I have installed here Command & Conquer, SimCity 4, SimCoaster, Winamp, and Atari Arcade, Unreal, Quake 2, Warcraft 3, X-Wing Alliance, which I can't use because I don't have a joystick, and Doom 2. Doom 2 is running under DOS, and the MIDI music works, but the sound effects under DOS games is hit or miss because of the fact that this is an emulation, Sound Blaster emulation. So let's start with Doom. Let's start with let's go down the list here. Let's start with Command & Conquer. And we're gonna have a quick demo of how fast this is. As you can see, this loaded up very fast, so it's a fun. Let me lower the volume. It's very fast. Let me see if I get what resolution I'm playing in. Visual controls. I can sound controls. Let's see, abort mission. Let me see if I can change the resolution here. Oh, I don't have settings for the resolution here. That's interesting. Anyway, very fast.
New construction options. Construction complete. New construction options.
So, if you can see here, I can it's quite playable. All right, so that was Command & Conquer.
Battle control terminated.
Let me exit this. Next one I'm gonna show you is SimCity 4. So I'm just gonna go into the tutorial, and this is at 1024 by 768. So I'm gonna zoom in really quick, exit tutorial, and play city, so you can see how nice it is to actually see more or less what's happening here. Works really well. All right, I'm gonna exit this. My goal here is to show just how performant this computer is at loading and playing these games. SimCoaster, I'm gonna skip it right now because I don't know how to play that, and I'm gonna go to Unreal. the SSD is really helping here a lot. Press escape. I don't know how to play this game, so I'm just gonna let it load, and that's it. I'm using the mouse. This is at, I believe, at 1024 by 768. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. But as you can see, the OpenGL performance is very good, especially for this a game of this vintage. So, quit that. And now I'm gonna show Quake 2. Keep in mind that this is all passively cooled as well, and which, again, this is a low-end hardware. Oh, I can just let it show the demo, because it's probably better than what I can do. Keep in mind, this is like a 1.6 gigahertz Atom CPU. Alright, so I'm gonna quit this, and I'm gonna now load Warcraft 3. I'm gonna do a multiplayer game, create a game, and create game. And I'm gonna choose an insanely hard computer, which is probably gonna kill me really fast, but that's fine, because I'm just showing the performance. Okay, game is loaded. And it's very fast. Alright, this would have been a very nice computer back in the day. And Doom 2, just for completion. Just use the mouse a little bit. Music sounds amazing. The sound effects, like I said, don't work well. So this is Doom 2 under DOS. And to show that this is a real retro machine, I'm gonna load the arcade, which is going to be Pong. Now this is real retro. I remember having a TV that had this built into it, and it was, and I'm awful. And that was it. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this this video. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe, because I upload a video once or twice a month, and showcase a different piece of hardware, usually every single time I create one. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.